You know, when it comes to the vaccine debate, beware of anyone who says the phrase, "the science is settled." That's a phrase uttered by liars and child killers, frankly.
When discussing the pros and cons of health policies, beware of people that call their opponents liars and child killers, as they aren't likely to engage in an intellectually honest discussion. We shall see if this is the case with the health ranger in this video, but I have a strong suspicion it will be. Hi, I'm R.
And I'm Jay.
And today we'll be looking at a video by Mike Adams regarding vaccines. Let's get to it.
Because what they're really saying when they say the science is settled is that there can be no debate, that you can't question anything. You know, it's something like what the Catholic Church would say hundreds of years ago. You know, the church is the ultimate authority, Galileo. You can't say that the earth orbits around the sun, you know, because according to the church, the earth was the center of the universe. So you couldn't challenge that dogma. And the vaccine industry is based on nothing more than a similar type of dogma, just sort of rearranged and rephrased for the modern world. They use the word science, where the Catholic Church used the word religion.
Okay, so there are a lot of problems here. The first of which being that when someone says the science is settled, they aren't necessarily saying that there can be no debate at all. What they are saying is that within the scientific community, this has been deeply explored, and the evidence points to a clear conclusion, and hence the consensus that has been made. And any changes to that consensus are going to come from other scientists, not from random health blogs. But some things no longer require a discussion. For example, the claim that vaccines cause autism. There is no discussion to be had regarding this anymore. There is absolutely no reason, statistically or mechanistically, to assert that this is the case. And on top of that, there is a vast degree of evidence showing that it isn't the case. It's not reasonable to make that assertion, and no time needs to be dedicated to fighting it anymore. It's just like how we can't keep taking people who claim the Earth is the center of the universe seriously, just because we want to keep discussion open. Science is still an ongoing process, but at this given point in time, the evidence points to a very clear conclusion, and without more evidence, there isn't grounds for a debate. Secondly, your comparison of the scientific community to the Catholic Church is ridiculous. The Catholic Church has specific doctrine that is infallible in their view, as opposed to the scientific community, which is built upon a large body of research that you can read for yourself, and has been criticized the whole way through because of the process of peer review. There is no ultimate authority in science, making this a false equivalence. You are free to not like the conclusion, but to be so dishonest as to compare it to a religious organization is unacceptable, and just shows that you literally have no understanding of how science works.
But it's the same power system, it's the same monopoly of authority, and it's the same demand of absolute obedience, and the same trying to shut down any kind of debate, any kind of questioning. And so it's really not science at all.
No, it is science. There are hundreds of independent universities, public and private research labs all over the world that published in multiple independent journals for peer review, and then those papers are read by the rest of the scientific community once published. To imply that this entire system of all these independent research facilities and various sources of funding works in a conspiracy just to push the infallible word of vaccines is plain ridiculous. You're telling me Bill Clinton couldn't keep the secret that he got a blowjob in the Oval Office, despite only 2 people knowing about it, but a system with thousands of people who have never met and don't operate in the same circles is knowingly corrupt, pushing their agenda that kills children, and manages to keep that a secret and just appear like an honest system for inquiry from the outside. Vaccine research is just another branch of science that is subject to the same quality control as all the others.
Because real science welcomes discussion. Real science welcomes a debate. Real science isn't afraid to be challenged, because it can back up its assertions with facts, rational thinking, and data.
All of that exists in the case of vaccines. There are thousands of studies which make up our body of knowledge on vaccines. Just because no one can be bothered dealing with conspiracy nuts doesn't mean they are afraid of criticism. Oh my god, NASA doesn't spend all its time debating people who deny the moon landing. Looks like they aren't real scientists and are just like the Catholic Church. Science is an everlasting discussion, but that discussion is evidence-based and not on the opinions of conspiracy nuts.
But the vaccine industry can't defend itself against even the smallest question. If you say, why is there still mercury in vaccines being injected into children? Their answer is, you're anti-science, not, Not, oh, here's data showing vaccines are safe to, like mercury can be injected at safe levels. They don't have that data. It doesn't exist.
They literally do have this data regarding toxicology. This is insane. You can't possibly assert they don't have the data. The studies are easy to find. I at least thought you were going to claim that any data they give is a conspiracy or something, not that they don't have it. You need to be careful, your bias is showing.
So they try to shut down the debate. They try to stop the questions. They demand obedience.
Actually, they just don't take you seriously because there is no pleasing you. When the data is there, you just claim it doesn't exist or that it's not real science. If anybody's the Catholic Church here, it's you, Mike.
And so really, the vaccine pushers are nothing more than modern day dogmatic totalitarians, you might say, or you might call them a religion. You could say they belong to the Church of Scientific Mysticism.
Your references to dogmatism are puzzling to me. You're the one who's claiming thousands of people to be dishonest purely because they don't take you seriously. I could just start listing studies published, but I know that wouldn't change anything because you've already stated the entire industry isn't real science, which is nice, no true Scotsman fallacy, by the way. You start by defining anything opposed to you as not real science, so the opportunity for discussion with you is closed. The scientists publish their data, but your dogmatism prevents you from taking an unbiased look.
And just like any cult, they demand absolute obedience, and they cannot handle any questions whatsoever, and they reject any evidence that contradicts their mythology.
Do you have any self-awareness? Hey, Kettle. Yes, Pot. You're one black-ass son of a bitch.
And so the mythology of the vaccine industry and the vaccine pushers, who are, frankly, they're child killers. That's what they advocate.
See, this is dogmatism. The scientific community involved in vaccines consists of thousands of people all over the globes in various methods of research, and you dehumanize them all to the point that you call them child killers. Can you hear yourself talk? You call them dogmatic and then dehumanize a huge group of people, even if they are mistaken, which there is no reason to believe they are. But if they are mistaken, wouldn't they just be men and women who are trying to do what is right and save lives but are misguided? Nope, they are evil child killers. Look, I don't believe anti-vaxxers have bad intentions. I think they just want what is best for children, but they are mistaken regarding vaccines. See how easy it is to not dehumanize other people?
Their mythology is that all vaccines are completely safe, that there are no children harmed by them, and that they say that vaccines have no side effects and that they're always effective.
Okay, so your dishonesty continues. That's a total straw man fallacy. You are misrepresenting vaccine advocates. Vaccines have side effects. Literally no vaccine scientist would deny that. The thing is, the vast majority of side effects are extremely minor, and the incidence of serious complications is considerably lower than that of the diseases they prevent. It's a basic cost-benefit analysis, and vaccines are clearly a net positive. Furthermore, no one claims that vaccines are 100% effective either. Different vaccines have different rates of effectiveness, but the purpose of vaccines is to make the spread of a disease very difficult to the point that the disease eventually dies out, as it can't spread enough. You don't get 100% resistant to a disease when you are vaccinated against it, at least not all the time. But if everyone is vaccinated, you get herd immunity, which chokes the disease out of the population and protects people that are immunocompromised and can't get vaccinated. Again, you accuse your opponents of being dogmatic, and then you proceed to completely misrepresent them with a blatant strawman fallacy.
All of those things are false. Vaccines do harm children, they do kill some children, and they do cause autism.
We already covered those other things, but you just made a big claim there. Prove vaccines cause autism. The only study showing a link between vaccines and autism was a study by Andrew Wakefield, which was proven to be fraudulent, so a group of lawyers could sue a pharmaceutical company. There is no verifiable evidence that vaccines cause autism. There isn't even a correlation. And even if there was, correlation doesn't equal causation. You are spiraling out of control here.
Vaccines do not work most of the time. Many vaccines are entirely fraudulent. The science has been faked and fabricated by the vaccine companies.
And here comes the conspiracy claims. You realize vaccine companies still publish their data in peer-reviewed journal articles, and their vaccines are investigated by researchers outside their company once it hits the public. There you go telling lies, but no, we're the liars and the dogmatic ones. There are a few instances of poor manufacturing with vaccines, but the cases are extremely rare, and where the cases occur, these vaccines are retracted and modified. It doesn't justify saying vaccines overall are bad, and people promoting them are child killers.
That's another point that the vaccine industry neglects to mention. That we, human beings, we are built, we're born with the technology inside of us, the cellular technology of self-immunization. We immunize ourselves all the time.
Yeah, tell that to all the people who died of polio or any other preventable diseases. Humans have an immune system, but that is far from perfect. We make vaccines for conditions that have high complication rates for the population. So, for example, you may say the flu isn't too dangerous, and it probably isn't to you, but it is to small children, the elderly, and people who are immune compromised. We weigh up the cost to benefit ratio of creating a vaccine and decide whether it's worth it, which if you were actually honestly investigating this, you would be able to find that out easily. Yep, but the vaccine advocates are dogmatic child killers.
I haven't been vaccinated in probably maybe 20 years at this point. I don't remember exactly. 15 to 20 years, maybe longer. I don't know. A long time. And yet, if you were to take my blood, you would find I have antibodies for all the different flus, strains of influenza that have been circulating out there in the wild. Well, how did that happen? Do I have magical blood? No. I self-immunized without even trying.
Okay, let's take the blood of small children or the old people who died of the flu. Is their blood less magic than yours? It must be, because they're dead. From the complications that arise because of the flu, you douche. Oh, sorry, that must be my dogmatism showing.
It's called your immune system. And you and your ancestors have been doing this since the very first day that human life began on this planet. You've been immunizing yourself from the day you were born. Otherwise, you'd be dead by now.
Lots of people are dead now who wouldn't have been if they were immunized. This is like saying, I survived the war, so war isn't dangerous. Just because people live through it doesn't make it safe. Vaccines work by giving you an immunization for a particular virus that triggers you to get antibodies for the original virus without having to get the virus itself and risk the complications that arise from it. I'm sorry, I must have so much dogmatism.
And the big lie of the vaccine industry is that you're somehow born deficient, like you're born in sin or something. You have to be treated with their mystical injections of mysterious substances in order to be a complete human being.
No, you are born with the limits of basic biology, and to increase the quality of life for the population, we can take interventions to help. This is seriously moronic. If you applied it to any other mode of discourse, you would call it stupid. You don't need plumbing, you are born with the ability to dig holes and crap in them, but big plumbing persuades you that you need this method of waste disposal to be a complete human. But you can live fine if you dig a hole and crap into it and then don't wash your hands. I'm sorry, my dogmatism is out of control here.
It's a total fraud. You were already born with a complete immune system. In fact, if you drink your mother's breast milk, you're getting some additional immune system boosting from that. So you're getting extra help.
Firstly, not everyone does have a complete immune system. Secondly, in a similar way that drinking breast milk is extra help, vaccines are also extra help. As much as without vaccines, a lot of people would still live, we would have a significantly higher rate of serious complications that would cause unnecessary suffering and death. To say we are born with an immune system so we don't need vaccines is just like saying we are born with the ability to clot blood so we don't need stitches. Nah man, don't worry about my gashed open leg. Nature will save me.
In addition to the technology that's already in your cells. And so unless you're somehow immunocompromised in some very rare way, if you have decent nutrition, you have an immune system that can fight off the flu and the chicken pox and the measles and the mumps and 1,000 other diseases. Now, I understand that if you're a scientist working in a level 4 biohazard facility, you should probably be, vaccinated against those toxic, deadly viruses that you're handling. I understand that. I'm not against that. I'm talking about everyday people out in the world, out in the wild. You don't need to vaccinate anybody against the flu. It's nonsense. It's a complete medical fraud.
See, this is where you just don't understand the incidence rates of complications for diseases. Diseases exist because they are highly contagious. The ones that aren't contagious die out. The ones that are contagious, however, can have a deceivingly high rate of complications. For example, measles seems to have a low death rate, which is 1 in 1,000 cases. But when 1 million children get measles, 1,000 will die. On a large scale, it really starts to build up. The serious complication rates from vaccines, which are implemented on a huge scale, doesn't even come close to that. But let's talk about non-fatal complications. 1 in every 20 children that get measles gets pneumonia, which is a really common cause of death. So if 1 million children get measles, 50,000 will get pneumonia, all of which places them at serious risk of further complications or permanent injury. The complication rate of vaccines doesn't even come close to this. For example, the incidence rate of an allergic reaction such as anaphylaxis with the MMR vaccine is a rate of 3.5 per 10 million doses. So if 1 million children gets the vaccine, 0.35 children will have a serious allergic reaction to it. And this reaction does not necessarily mean death. The World Health Organization estimates that 2 to 3 million deaths are prevented each year due to vaccinations. Numbers don't lie.
You don't need to vaccinate children against measles or mumps or chicken pox or the flu. None of that stuff. You have a child that's healthy, they self-immunize on their own.
People don't just magically develop immunity to diseases without catching them. To get the immunity, they have to be exposed to the disease, and we have already touched on complication rates of diseases versus vaccines. I'll put some further reading in the description if you want to know more about this, but this video will be incredibly boring if we just spend 15 minutes reading out statistics. Having said that, I just can't let some things slide. You just said we don't need to vaccinate against chickenpox. This shows just how ignorant on the topic you are. Before the implementation of the varicella vaccine in 1995, chickenpox killed over 100 people a year, half of whom were children. It hospitalized a further 12,000 people with serious complications, and now we have a 97% decrease in deaths from the chickenpox because of the vaccine. And before you say that we can get the immunity without the vaccine, I will remind you that adults are 20 times more likely to die from chickenpox as children are. So what is your magic plan to safely infect all the children with chickenpox before adolescence and still protect them and the adult population against any complications? Without the varicella vaccine, there is more or less a guaranteed increase in chickenpox-related deaths, and you call us child killers.
Yeah, maybe they show the symptoms of the chicken pox. Maybe they're symptomatic for a short period of time. That's part of the process of expressing your immune system. That's part of the process of building the antibodies. It makes your immune system stronger. It gives you practice. It's called natural immunity because it happens naturally. In fact, it's so powerful that you can't turn it off. You can't even like turn off your immune system, no more than you can turn off your heart beating.
In the same way that it is natural to get over measles, it is also natural for many children to die from it. Just because something is natural doesn't make it better. That is an appeal to nature fallacy. Humans do a lot of things that wouldn't be called natural, but it improves our quality of life. You drive a car, you use computers, you have surgery, you wear clothes, and a large list of other things because we use our problem-solving skills to better our lives. It is natural for humans to solve problems to make life easier.
So when you hear people say, oh, the science is settled, they're actually rejecting their humanity. They're rejecting what they were already born with and what you and I were born with, which is a fully functioning immune system ready to defend us against a world full of potential pathogens and microbial invaders.
It is ridiculous to assert that if you do anything to supplement your biology, you're rejecting humanity. Using this logic, if someone wears clothes, then they're rejecting their humanity because they are born with small hairs and mechanisms for thermoregulation to use every day. Damn it, Mike, where is your humanity? Get naked like we are right now. But seriously, if someone used antibiotics to treat an infection, are they then rejecting their humanity? That's a really stupid point, Mike.
Well, the human race wouldn't exist at all if we didn't have a very powerful immune function that's handed down through hereditary ancestors to give us that kind of capability. We'd all be dead if we didn't have that. Vaccines have only been around less than 100 years. How on earth did we survive before that?
The rate of death was significantly higher prior to the intervention of medical science. Yes, we lived for hundreds and thousands of years before medical science, but we had life expectancies ranging from 20 to 45 years, as opposed to the 80 plus years we can expect now. The progression of medical science has been a huge boon to mankind, and to reject that on the basis that we lived for thousands of years before is moronic. Why invent an airplane when we could travel places fine by sail ship for centuries prior to that? Because improvements can always be made.
You see, if you start to look at the logic or the lack of logic of the vaccine industry, it all falls apart so quickly. They say you can't live without vaccines, and yet there were, tens of thousands of generations before us who did live without vaccines.
Who said that? Who said that you literally can't live without vaccines? No one. That's who. Congratulations, you've committed another strawman fallacy. Hey, Pot. Yes, Kettle, you're still one black-ass son of a bitch.
And in fact, they lived very well. In many ways, they were much healthier than people living today.
What? Not if you're talking about life expectancy or quality of life. The only reason you could say people were healthier back then is because people live longer now, and with age comes greater risk of disease. 70-year-olds get osteoporosis a lot more than 30-year-olds.
And it wasn't vaccines that saved children. It was public sanitation, just clean sewage systems and running water, and the invention of soap, did more for saving humanity than all the vaccines in the world.
Public sanitation is important and has greatly increased the quality of human life, and in conjunction with vaccines, you can further improve the quality of life. Why would the existence of sanitation decrease the efficiency of vaccines at all? If you're claiming that it is sanitation, not vaccines, that cause the reduction in diseases, this simply isn't true. Sanitation definitely contributed, but by no means was the primary cause behind the recession of all the diseases we currently vaccinate for. Read the links in the description I will provide for a far more detailed explanation.
So don't believe the vaccine mythology, don't believe the dogma, don't believe the church of scientific mysticism and all the bogus vaccine pushers who are mostly deranged, mentally ill people anyway, if you really get down to it. They're people that kind of like to damage children. They're kind of sicko, in the head. They like to see children become autistic. They love to poison children. They love to inject mercury into bodies and see what happens. They're kind of sick. They don't fall for their nonsense.
Okay, there you went totally off the rails. This, everyone, is true dogmatism, where someone can claim that everyone opposed to their beliefs are mentally ill and enjoy watching children suffer. When you hear this, that's when you know this person can't be taken seriously. And I think this is a good place to end the video before he makes a Nazi reference.
The vaccine Holocaust denialism that's out there will one day be shattered, and I think that day is coming soon.
See? A Nazi reference! I called it! Thanks for watching. Subscribe for weekly videos, like this video, and share it around to help us raise the bar of public discourse.